The biggest part of leadership really is listening to those ideas, listening to them. Training is I'm going to show you the tools, teach you the tools. But coaching is really getting the best out of someone. As leadership, we have to support the ideas, make sure we get out there and show them we're serious about it, and the ideas will keep rolling.
Welcome back to KPI Fireside, a continuous improvement podcast. If this is your first time listening in, welcome. We're so happy to have you join us. Our mission here is simple: to improve companies and to improve careers through continuous improvement. We're here to share inspiring stories and journeys from individuals who have embarked on the path of continuous improvement. Through these interviews with leaders, innovators, change makers, we explore the sparks that ignite transformative journeys both within organizations and in personal and career growth. So whether you're just starting out or whether you're looking to take your career to the next level, this podcast is here to guide, inspire, and empower you. I am your host, Keith Norris, and our guest today is Jesse Rendon. Jesse is a seasoned operations expert with over 17 years experience leading transformation in complex industries like aerospace, pharmaceuticals, and chemical manufacturing. He has deep expertise in Lean, Six Sigma, and performance management. Jesse's known for driving operational excellence, developing strong leadership teams, and creating cultures of continuous improvement. His approach combines strategic insight with hands-on execution, making him a trusted leader in delivering lasting business results. Jesse, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Keith, thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you on. Where are you located geographically today?
I'm in La Mirada, California.
La Mirada, California. Is that Southern California?
Southern California, correct.
Okay, wonderful. Well, one of the things that we like to start the conversation with all of our guests, we call it the spark. And what I find is a lot of people in this discipline, there's maybe a moment, an experience that they had where they were maybe first introduced to this concept of continuous improvement in some way. I'm curious if you remember where your journey down this path started.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it started back in 1998. I was a delivery driver for Staples, and delivering all those boxes to the customers could get a little hectic. You get in the back of the truck, you open it up, and boxes are everywhere. So I worked with the continuous improvement team there, and we started to figure out how can we optimize the loads in the back of the trucks. So we had a black belt team there that came through from a corporate. I worked closely with them, and we optimized all of the trucks. So we had third shift come in, looked at how we can load the boxes in the back of the truck more efficiently. And from there, it became something that was passionate and near and dear to my heart. How can you improve that? Just to see everybody putting boxes in a different way in the back of a truck was amazing. It was so simple, and it really improved our productivity and all the drivers and made our routes a lot more efficient.
I think that's interesting, and that it's unique, but it's also common in a lot of ways. I know a lot of people who were first introduced to this discipline by either a boss or managers or even sometimes a customer said you need to put a black belt on this or something along those lines, and then this junior person who's just doing a job, right, maybe out of college or in college or something or whatever, gets introduced to this like wizard who knows all this like great problem solving skills, and it kind of opened your eyes to this idea that like work doesn't have to totally suck.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I
I
agree.
I think that's one of my favorite things about this discipline is working with people who realize that the way that it's always been doesn't have to be the way that it's always done. I'm curious, Jesse, if you might, if there's maybe some milestones, like I think that people in this discipline, it's helpful to know like what does a career in this field potentially look like? Maybe you could tell us about how you went from delivery driver to where you're at now.
Yeah, so again, as a delivery driver for Staples, eventually made my way up to delivery operations manager, where I had the whole business unit under my leadership. So first shift, second shift, third shift. Worked all three shifts of the operation to see where we can streamline the process, And like I said, from there, I fell in love with continuous improvement. I'd go out on deliveries with the drivers, walk off the truck with the drivers to see how we can, make it more efficient just to the customer itself. So that got fun, that got exciting, but it was time to do bigger and better things. So I moved on to become a director of operations for a 3PL provider. There, we were able to work in 300,000 square foot facilities with three shifts, and we're offloading trucks again, but this time we're using automated systems. So now we got into the automation with conveyor belts, trying to take a lot of that manual labor out, and just continuing again to improve that process to get the customer that delivery so much quicker, which is what we focus on in lean. Unfortunately, the recession hit 2008, and but another door opened, manufacturing. So there I go into manufacturing. Never did manufacturing before, but I took the concept of it's just like driving a truck. I have to get this delivery to the customer as quick and safe as possible. So I ran a machine shop. We had an assembly area, similar types of process. Right, is machine the product, get the product to the assembly line, get it to the customer as soon as possible. We were doing irrigation systems there, industrial valves, and aerospace defense called me and said, we have an opportunity. So I went into aerospace and defense again, streamlining processes, doing major projects there, working for a third biggest supplier in the world at that point. So, what was interesting to me was when I walked into that facility, I was speaking to the CEO during our interview, and he said, I want you to focus on streamlining the operation. I looked around and I said, this operation looks great. What's wrong with it? It's impeccable. I mean, what do you mean? So he's like, yeah, it looks like that, but it's really not. So as you started to dig in, you realize there was a lot of inefficiencies, a lot of waste going on, a lot of training, a lot of development that needed to be had. So again, focused on the improvements with the team, started to become more involved in the day to day with them and get some Kaizen events going from the leadership side and the green belt, black belt projects that we started to implement out on the shop floor. From there, I moved into the chemical setting. Our aerospace company moved out of state. So I wanted to now obviously continue to keep progressing in my career. And that's where I ended at my last company with the chemical company. So very diverse background, going from transportation to aerospace and defense manufacturing, now chemicals. Right. So I'm looking around, gave the opportunity in some chemicals. I mean, where do I even start? So again, you start from the ground where you start out with the shop floor, understand what those processes are, do some more research on your side on the chemicals. It was something new to me, but really leaning on all of the subject matter experts so they can teach you and really educate you on what it is that they need help with. My last position there was vice president of operations. There was some organizational changes, and now I'm out in the market looking for that next opportunity where I can help transform and really embed some of these improvements that I have everywhere I've been.
Excellent. So on this podcast, I received some feedback, and somebody said to me, "Oh, I learned some new business terms that I didn't know what they meant." So I try to drill down on like acronyms and terms. You mentioned a Kaizen event. Tell us what a Kaizen event is.
Yeah, sure. So Kaizen event is change, so it's really good change is what it means in Japanese. Now, Kaizen event could be something as simple as a small mini improvement, could take an hour, or it could be a major event where it could be 5 days. So you really hone in on the current state process. What is the opportunity in front of us? You bring the team together, you map that process out. And then throughout that process, the team and you guys come up with brainstorming and where can we really improve in this process to get where we want to go in the future state. So the team members get together, we're looking at opportunities, we brainstorm, then we start coming up with actions on how we're going to get where we want to go. Now the team is really important in this process. I'm just there to support them, but they're the ones that know what needs to happen. They are the experts, and those are the guys and gals that we have to listen to. So during this event, we're listening to their ideas, their suggestions, and then we put them in place. And when we put them in place, we measure those results and we figure out did it work or did it not. If it didn't work, then we go right back and we fix it. That's what continuous improvement is all about. So Kaizen is just always changing, always looking for that next improvement and bringing that team along for the ride.
I love it. You said a couple of things that I want to drill down on. I think they're great concepts there. One of them was the idea of facilitating. I think some people think that this thing that we call continuous improvement is just something that every manager and every leader should just do automatically. Like, Why do you need a facilitator to help with that process? This is just good leadership and good management, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what they think. But facilitation is huge. You have to keep everybody on track and within scope. If you bring the team together and we start to think about everything that we can accomplish, nothing's going to get done. Right. So really making sure everyone stays on track. The scope is we're honed in on the scope, nothing changes, and just hearing everybody out, hearing those suggestions, hearing the ideas that people have. I've been in brainstorming sessions where sometimes ideas were shut down, and that's not what we're supposed to do. They have the ideas. Whether you may think it's a good idea or not, it's an idea and it's an important to them. And if they stop giving you those ideas, well, you're going to find yourself alone. And good luck on trying to get some of these Kaizen events and improvements, to be successful without them.
Yeah, what one of my favorite quotes on this topic is if you don't have one, you are one. And what I mean by that is like, let's say you're a homeowner and you have a lawn, right? If you don't have a lawn guy, you are the lawn guy, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If you don't have a project manager to do the, I don't know, to clean your garage on the weekend, you are the project manager to clean your garage on the weekend. If you're a CEO of a company and you don't have a vice president of continuous improvement, you are a vice president of continuous improvement. If you're a vice president of continuous improvement and you don't have directors of continuous improvement, you are a director of continuous improvement. If you don't have project managers, you are a project manager. So I'm a huge fan of the strategy of organizations. You need to apply resources to get things that are important. You apply resources to them. From a top level down, it's about resource allocation. I'm a huge fan for advocating resources to continuous improvement. If you want to make sure that something's getting done, you need to apply some resources to it. I believe that you've been involved in helping create some programs or build some programs in some organizations. Talk us through what some of the fundamentals are in having a successful continuous improvement program.
Yeah, that's good. It's important to really hone in on this as well. So you have to find you have to go on a recruiting effort. When I say that, you have to go out and see who are the people that are passionate about change and continued improvement, just like you are. Because if I come in and I say, we're just going to do this, it's not going to work. But there are other individuals out there that are looking for that change, that are working on the shop floor, that are supervisors, that are managers, and not just in the shop. I'm talking about departments as accounting, customer service, sales. People want improvements, but a lot of people don't like to change. So you have to bring those people in and say, okay, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this together. So you start with getting people on your side. Who are the ones that really want the change, that are willing to use some of the tools that we teach in Lean? Find that key group of individuals. Once you find that key group of individuals, you start to build on that group. And so one of the companies where I worked at, I developed what I called the Lean Squad. So I had individuals that were excited about what we were doing. I had engineering interns that were summer interns. We got together and we started to just come up with, what does this squad look like? What does this team look like? We started with basic fundamentals and training, the 7 forms of waste, the 5 S's, really basic tools. Once we started to develop the curriculum on how we're going to train them, then I can see the passion in them. If I saw guys that were really interested in it, then it probably wasn't going to be the right fit for them. We got the teams together. We started to see, okay, are you the ones that are going to help us really spread this across the whole entire organization? So we found the group, started the group. It worked for a few years, and then it started to where everyone wanted to be part of that team. So we went outside of that. I got a third party where we're using their software to use. It was 8 modules where we trained people, and I was their coach. And we started to certify these guys as certified lean practitioners. So now it just expanded. They expanded to quality, sales, accounting. They were certified lean practitioners. It wasn't just the shop floor anymore. So after that, we became this lean squad of, I think it was 23 members of the organization, 10% of the company now. And I said,
Wow.
we need some type of an incentive program. How do we get the rest of the organization on track? So I developed a continuous improvement idea program. And this is where we used KPI software. So we started to come up with an idea program where I put a goal out there for the departments and said, I want every individual to give us one idea a month. And if you give us one idea a month, you are going to get into a raffle where you have a chance to win a $25 gift card just for giving us an idea. And for every department who submits the most ideas, you get a lunch. So now everyone's bought into it. They want that lunch and they want that gift card, right? So keeping them incentivized, showing them, that it's important to us, making sure we execute on those ideas because that's another downfall. If they give us the ideas and we do nothing about it, then again, it's just going to stop and you're not going to get those ideas anymore. So that's important. Is as leadership, we have to support the ideas, make sure we get out there and show them we're serious about it, and the ideas will keep rolling. So that was where my first time really developing that continuous improvement program. We started to develop maturity assessments. There's different levels of the program, but that's kind of how we started it, and it just grew from there.
Hey, Jesse, you mentioned a lean squad. Tell us a little bit more about what that is.
So Lean Squad is a team of employees who come together to help drive continuous improvement in the organization. So it's members that are really part of the lean program. They have additional training that others may not get, and they also are assigned some small projects. They do 5S audits on the shop floor, and they report directly to myself or the continuous improvement manager, value stream manager, whoever you have in the organization. But those are the people on the floor or within other departments that really help you spread that positivity around the whole entire organization and build the momentum for the continuous improvement program.
I love that. I love how you made it like a special team, like even just the word squad, right? Like that might not work for everybody, but
Right.
it's something that you did that works for your team. Were the members of the lean squad, was that a full-time role or was it like something that they did on top of their day job?
Yeah, it was something they did on top of their day job. We did incentivize them in other ways. We gave them polo shirts and had them. So what we did is we had them do their work throughout the week, but we gave them maybe it was 2 hours every Monday and Wednesday where they focused on the additional tasks that the lean program was rolling out. So they had some time outside of their workday to focus on lean. So it didn't that's what most people will start getting concerned with is I still have my day job. I get that, but this is just an addition to that, and it helps them grow and develop as well.
How did you first identify potential candidates for that lean squad?
It's the fire in the belly. You can see it when you start to talk to people, and I'm very careful when I use the lean terms, because a lot of it's confusing, right? You start using some in the Kanbans and Pokeyoke and people, what is that? So they do continuous improvement every day. Everyone's always doing continuous improvement. They just don't realize it's really lean that they're doing. But when
Yeah.
I go out to the floor and you can see, I did this and I fixed this, or we should probably do this, then we should do that. Okay, I see something in you. You're what I call a rising star. You got a little more that you want to do here. So those are the guys you could tell. It's just that you can see it in their passion and the drive that they have and their own work, that they do on a daily basis.
I think you're exactly right with that. I think that this thing we call continuous improvement or lean, in some ways, it's just common sense. It's just good, problem solving. It's standing on the shoulders of giants. It's just learning things that people have learned before you. It's just, I use the phrase structured problem solving because you like realize like there was this problem that you had in logistics and the way you solve that problem can be applied to defense, can be applied to chemicals. And I mean, it can be applied to all sorts of industries. So that's what I find most interesting about it is the concepts are so simple, but there's so many layers to it that you can peel. How did you start your idea program? Like how did you actually get people to share those ideas?
Yeah, well, I started that with the supervisors and managers. I gave them the opportunity to let me know how this would work. Because again, I'm not a leader that's going to go and force things onto people, force any programs, any type of activities. It's really a joint effort. So I brought the team together and I said, look, how do we get people bought into the program? Here's an idea that I have, and I threw it out there and the guys loved it, and we just started to roll it out into the shop floor and say, here's a goal. It's also tied to the performance review. Continuous improvement was one of our core values at our company. So that really helped drive the idea program because, at the end of the year, if you don't submit those ideas, it could impact your performance. It could impact your merit. But at the end of the day, guys, we're trying to just help you. And there was people that would come back and say, I don't want to be a part of it. I don't have any ideas. And I would just ask them and say, okay, if you could do something different today, what would you do? And they would come back with 3, 4 different things. I said, okay, you just gave me 3, 4 ideas. What do you mean? But they were kind of the shy guys or gals that didn't want to submit the ideas because, they were kind of embarrassed to put their name in the hat. Like, no, so the gift card started to help. Seeing the results on the shop floor really started to get people excited. And then we started to have them actually complete their idea. So before it was us, that lean squad that would say, okay, here's your idea. I'm going to help you with it. Then we changed it to put the ownership on the person who submitted the idea themselves. Okay, you want to submit the idea? I'm going to give you some time, but you have to complete the idea. And when they complete the idea, it becomes their idea. It becomes their process. They're more bought into it. And it's not us just, doing something and changing it. It's now them. So they take full ownership of it. So that's really how we kind of got it off the ground. And it was really it was successful. Successful when I left, and hopefully they're continuing with it as well.
There you're touching on a topic that I find interesting. Like, some people are in a work environment where you have an idea, like that's my idea or that's someone else's idea. I think, you're probably someone who you have ideas, you see things, but when you see somebody else have that idea and you're like, that's actually an idea that's been here for a long time. But I love that you came up with that idea and I'm going to support it and I'm going to nurture it just like it's kind of like watching your children take their first steps, like it's this milestone, huge event. I think there's something along those lines with the idea. How do you make sure that the ideas that are getting shared are useful ideas or, not just kind of trivial things? Do you have any advice on that?
That's a good question. So we did change that because we were getting those ideas that weren't really continuous improvement ideas. It was more of buy me a trash can. We needed an additional broom on the floor. So we changed it, and again, using the KPI software, it's here's your idea, but what are the benefits? What is it that you're really going to do with this idea? How is that going to improve the business? We always wanted to make sure that our ideas really supported the company objectives. Right? So if our company objectives were to improve on-time delivery, how does your idea support on-time delivery? So we started to vet the ideas out a lot better later on in the program. And believe it or not, we did get less ideas, because it was harder now to give us those ideas that were really gonna, turn the needle. But we wanted to make sure the ideas were the right ideas. The other thing that we did was we got the teams together, the management teams, and we went through them together. Which one of the ideas do we want to prioritize? Which one of these ideas do we, want to maybe move on to the next quarter or to the next year, but do not take the idea off of the list? And showing the employees, hey, your idea is on the list still. We didn't forget about it. We may not be working on it, but it's right there. It's on hold. So that way, again, they don't think their ideas are getting submitted, and then nothing happens with them. We're not listening to them. And part of leadership is the biggest part of leadership really is listening to those ideas, listening to them. And when we don't come back with them with feedback, then again, we're not listening to them. So the feedback is also very important for those ideas.
Yeah, the feedback is huge. They say one of the mistakes in asking for employee ideas is to ask for the ideas and never respond to them.
Absolutely.
So, let's see, I'm curious if there's a particular Kaizen event or a particular change that stands out to you that you might want to share with us. Maybe there was a time when what seemed like a simple idea actually had a pretty big business impact. Anything like that that comes to mind?
Yeah, we actually had a huge impactful project at a aerospace and defense company where I worked at, where we had a strategic plan for the year where we needed to reorganize the whole entire layout of the plant. So these were multiple Kaizen events that took a year long, and it was taking a machine shop from one side of the warehouse to the other side of the warehouse to eliminate the waste. So when you look at the layout itself, helicopter view of the layout, you can see that it just wasn't efficient. The machine shop was on the east side of the building, the assembly was on the west side of the building. So, I asked the question, why don't we just move the machines closer to the assembly area? And everybody's like, that can't happen. Those machines are heavy. There's no way. Well, there's a way. We just got to figure out how. So we did. We brought some heavy machinery, supplier vendors that came out, moved the heavy equipment. Again, it took us a year long, and we started to plot out where do all of these little cells belong. And we started to move some of these CNC machines closer to the assembly area. Made sure that there was walls around it where it didn't impact the assembly, and there was no, there wasn't any chips or anything flying around. But we did it, and we were successful, and we improved our efficiencies. People were doubting us at the beginning, but when they started to see things move and knocking down walls in the plant, uh, they were amazed, and they appreciate it. They're like, "Wow, this we don't have to travel that much more. We're right next to these guys." Yeah, absolutely. So that was one of the major projects that we did. I did another one recently on a financial project where there was some freight that we were realizing that we weren't making as much money on freight, and we dove into it and we realized that the program that we had purchased a few years back wasn't translating into another ERP system that we had. So we weren't invoicing our customers freight for years.
Right.
So that's just diving into the project and realizing, wow, this is why we're not getting the money that we thought we were getting on in freight. So, we improved that. We found some issues and we streamlined that process as well. And that was just direct to the bottom line. So again, it's not just the shop floor, it's different departments as well that where you can apply some of the lean tools and brainstorming and really root cause analysis. So from finance to operations, it works everywhere.
Yeah, it's I love that you've got experience with different functions inside the business. You mentioned something I want to come back to a little bit because when you say like ideas, sometimes people think like, oh, this is maybe just a suggestion box. We're going to ask employees for suggestions and stuff. And some things that come in, they're like just maintenance requests, right? Like we just need to do something. I saw one time. It was fix the bathroom fan. Like kind
Mhm,
of
mhm.
made me crack up. Like, yeah, I should
Yeah.
probably do that. But then you have things that are enormous, like maybe they require huge amounts of capital or something. When you think about improvements, do you have kind of like a mental model for how you bucket them to like the smallest of the small, where those fit versus the biggest of the big?
Yeah, we usually if it's a smaller project or idea and we'll call it just do it. But just get it done. Maybe it is purchasing something that can help automate a process. If it involves more of a root cause analysis, a brainstorming session, maybe it's a little small Kaizen event or a mini project. If it is capital investment and it's purchasing warehouse racking systems for the warehouse or reorganizing a department, a cell, and that becomes more of a project, and we start to work on an A3, and we work through the A3 problem solving process for those bigger projects.
When you talk about the benefits of implementing a lean program, if you follow the conversations online, you have the extremes of like cost savings, right? Like, yeah, should have an ROI and cost savings, and I'm a fan of that. I think that there's examples where that can be taken too far. But then you have maybe the other extreme where it's almost like no measurements, like we're just going to do the things that improve flow. And somewhere in between, there's probably like a good way to be accountable for the benefits. But how do you communicate to different people in an organization, from the senior executives, the CFO, to maybe a function leader to an employee, about either how to track the benefits or what the benefits of lean might be?
The good thing at almost every company I worked at, the leadership team was bought into lean, so that really helped drive a lot of the ideas. So and the leadership team was actually trained on the lean fundamentals as well. So that was key, getting them to understand what lean really is, how we're trying to improve the business. Getting them bought into it was also how this contributes to the company objectives, right? So these small ideas may not sound like they're going to do anything for us, but when you implement them, these are the results. This is how it can impact us, and then they start to get the benefits from it. And again, at my last company, quality was bought into it. Quality was submitting ideas on what they needed help. So the CI team was reaching out to them with supporting them, and they started to really, whoa, I see how continuous improvement can help. And one thing I want to expand on is my continuous improvement is a little bit different than other continuous improvement programs. our continuous improvement was not just lean. I taught leadership workshops on a monthly basis. That was continuous improvement. We had Excel classes that we actually taught to our employees from basic to intermediate to advanced classes. We had facilitation, we had project management. So continuous improvement revolved around what do we need to improve as a business, not just lean, but leadership as well. And leadership is where it starts from, because you have to learn how to deal with change as a leader. Because when you're implementing these Kaizen events and projects, people are going to be resistant. So let's teach you how to deal with change when you encounter that. Let's teach you effective communication skills. Let's teach you meeting etiquette. Let's teach you all of those things that are going to help you. Let's teach you how to collaborate with others. And so I had workshops monthly that were in parallel with the lean, and together those worked great. In tandem, those two just they go hand in hand. You have to have the leadership skills to really drive the continuous improvement program.
Jesse, I've noticed that you've used the word training and coaching, but I think you have a perspective on the difference between those two things.
Yes. So I was recently certified as a personal development, a mindset coach, which really helped me out with the training side. So training is I'm going to show you the tools, teach you the tools. But coaching is really getting the best out of someone. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to guide you because you have the answers. So I'm going to ask you those questions to get the best out of you. So if I ask someone out there and say, okay, I want you to go and move that table over there so we're not having to walk 30 steps anymore. Instead of telling them what to do, it's, hey, I see that you have a lot of, walking between you and that table. What do you think you should do? They have the answer. So coaching is getting the answer out of them. The more you coach, again, you're empowering those employees, you're getting them engaged, and it becomes their process. So make sure that you're a coach at the right time, train when it's necessary, but coaching is probably going to get you a lot farther when you're trying to get people to really drive into the continuous
I
improvement.
think that's such a good lesson for continuous improvement too, because you can't do everything yourself. As much improvement as somebody might want to make, it's great to have a leader with a strong ambition, but you really have to get people to do things because they want to do them, not just because you want them to do them. So that's great advice there, great wisdom. If you were going to build like a continuous improvement culture, what are some of those rituals that you would like to see put in place in an organization?
So one thing I would say is you want to start in a small area first to get that culture, So start in shipping and receiving. Start there only. Start the daily tier huddles. So in the morning you have a daily huddle. We follow SQCDPI, which is we start off with safety, we go into quality, cost, delivery, people, and ideas. So all six of those are brought up at that daily tier huddle. Then we go into a daily tier two. So day two or tier two is when the supervisors come out. So the morning is all employees in that department. Tier two is all the supervisors come out and talk about were there any problems that were brought up at the department level that need to be elevated to a tier two. Supervisors go through the same concept, SQCDPI. At the end of that, there's also a tier three. Tier three is where the senior leaders go out. And now we have our meeting. So all of the VPs and all of the executives at the building are coming together. Did anything elevate from tier two to tier three? So the tier three just showed again that we're supporting all of the departments. We go to the same format, SQCDPI, and if we have any actions that come out, we immediately fix those actions. But when I started that in a smaller department. And as it worked there, we tweaked it. We made some modifications to how it was working. Then we started gradually moving that on to other departments within the company. As far as driving the culture, as they started to see that work, we started to expand it, and everybody wanted to. Can we have those meetings as well? I want to be a part of that. And it started to spread across with the positivity, throughout the organization.
What's the frequency on those meetings? Tier one, tier two, tier three?
Daily,
Every day, all three.
every day, same time, same place, every day.
Jesse, I really like your expertise on the daily huddle. For somebody who's thinking about implementing a daily huddle, what would be the recipe for implementing a perfect daily huddle?
So you start with the board. You put a board on the wall, make it a visual management tool. It could be a digital board or it could be just a marker board. You have the SQCDPI, so safety. Are there any safety observations that we have today? Are there any safety concerns? Were there any safety incidents? And what is a safety topic for the month? So we talk about that in the first part. Then we go into quality. Are there any quality issues that didn't get resolved yesterday that we need to speak about today? Do we have something that just happened in the morning that we need to talk about now? And then we talk about our quality metrics, whatever those metrics were that we had at the organization. Then we go into cost. Cost usually is around overtime. Was there any overtime yesterday? Do we anticipate any overtime today? Then we get into the delivery. Delivery is usually around on-time delivery or completion to your schedule, whatever that on-time delivery metric is for that department. Are there any hot orders that we have to get out for that delivery side? Then we get into the people. People's interesting. People is where we talk about, is there anybody out of the office today? Is there anybody we want to recognize today? So this is an opportunity for us to recognize any individual on the shop floor or inside the office, and we base it on our core values. So did we see anybody going above and beyond, really demonstrating those core values that we want to recognize today? And when we recognize them, we get into another raffle. So now they get a raffle ticket if they are recognized. They go into a raffle for a $50 gift card. And again, so two people are picked on a monthly basis for demonstrating those core values on the shop floor. So that's the people side. Then the idea side is where we talk about the ideas. Are there any new ideas today? Are there ideas that we completed that we want to talk about? And then here's the list of all of the ideas that we have pending. And then we wrap it up there. It's usually about 5 to 7 minutes. Doesn't take long at all, and we want to keep it focused on that scope. And usually it's the at the tier three, it's the senior leader that would drive it. But what I started to do is every single person, every day there would be a different person facilitating that meeting, and we would just go around the horn, and people would just ask those questions throughout the meeting.
I love it. It sounds like, it sounds like a great huddle. And, I'm sure if somebody who, like, if that was their first job, was working on a team in a company like that, they would just think like, oh, this is the way everybody does it. But it's not, is it?
Yeah,
Like these things that you take for granted is like, oh, I think this is one thing that I realize with a lot of people, like as they go through their lives and their jobs, like you assume that because you're a nurse or because you're a shop floor, because you're a software developer, whatever it is, like everybody does it this way. And there's no such thing. Like every company does things a little bit differently, and you always need to find like the right way to do the thing for your company, because the thing that was perfect in one place might not be perfect somewhere else. Is
absolutely.
is there an improvement effort that maybe didn't work? Because we can also learn a lot from failures. Is there one that comes to mind where maybe things didn't turn out the way you wanted to? Maybe a lesson learned from a failed initiative?
Yeah. So going back to the aerospace and defense company, before we did the plant layout, what we started to do is really focus on the machine shop. So the machine shop was not producing the amount of units that assembly needed. So we went into the machine shop. We did some SMEDs, some single minute exchange of die, quick changeover events, really focusing on there, really looked at the programming. How can we optimize our program on the machines? Got it to the point where we were producing too much and we didn't focus on the next process. So it created a bottleneck just down to the next department. So when you're looking at the whole entire value stream, you want to focus on, where is your bottleneck, and make sure that if you're producing a certain amount of units, make sure that everybody else can keep up with it. We talk about tack time, and sometimes tack time is can be used in certain industries. This one we didn't look in tack time. We just went at it. It was a very high mix, low volume, company that we worked for. So it was difficult, but seeing that, we weren't able to focus on the whole entire process is where we really made that mistake. So we learned from it. We adjusted some of those process improvements, and we looked at the whole stream and say, okay, now we got to look at everyone instead of just looking at one at a time. So it really opened our eyes to got to pay attention to everything. Don't take your eye off the ball.
That's a good one. For anybody who might not be familiar with that, what is tack time?
Tack time is TAKT, and it's a German word for basically a pace, right? So pace setter. So it's customer demand. So you take your available hours, you divide that by your customer demand, and that's how many units you're supposed to produce to meet the customer's demand. You don't want to produce more, you don't want to produce less. You want to produce the tack time to keep your inventory levels down and keep the product flowing across the value stream.
It seems to me that this lean thing, this continuous improvement, there's really just some good ways to solve problems. Solving problems is a useful thing in somebody's career. What advice would you give to someone who's maybe early in their career or looking to make career advancements about this thing called lean?
Good question. I would say be careful with the lean jargon. Be careful with those words because you're already trying to teach someone the tools, and now you're teaching them almost a different language, right? So it's hard just to understand what we're trying to do with lean, and now you're throwing out again the kanbans, the jadoka, the all of these hoshin kanri, all of these words that's like whoa, 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 that's a little bit too much. So really change the wording if you need to, or change the verbiage. Make it something that they can understand. It's still going to be continuous improvement. You don't have to be exactly what the book says. Make it to where they can adapt to it. Speak their language. And that's I think that's going to be very important, and get their buy-in from day one. You know, I'm not going to go into your house and rearrange your house and say, I think this is the better. I think your couches belong here. I think you can watch TV from this area. I think this looks great. And you're like, wait a minute. You just came in here and changed everything. This is not the way I want it. It's their area. We have to respect their area. If I'm in an office setting and someone comes in and starts to videotape me when I'm working on my computer, I'm gonna ask them, "What do you do?" I'm gonna, "Whoa, what are you doing here?" But we're quick to go out to the shop floor and start to videotape these processes, right? It's very personal to them. We have to take that into consideration. We have to understand that they're human beings and it's change. And one of the other things that we also have to realize is we're dealing with 5 different generations in the workforce now, right? So everyone's different. Everyone is more open to change. Some don't want anything to do with change. So we have to be careful with that. Understand each person, what motivates them, and just make sure we focus on the personal side as well. Don't be too academic. Be more personal and relatable to their side of the business. That would be the best advice I can give.
I like that. So let me give you a scenario because I think this is an interesting one, particularly in large companies. There can be different fiefdoms and silos and different things, right? Let's say that you're hired as the VP of continuous improvement inside of an organization. How do you introduce yourself, or how do you have conversations with the function or area leads that you're going to be supporting and interacting with? What does that conversation go?
It's really just get to know them first. Get to know who I am and what I'm about. I'm here to help change. I'm here to help support. Maybe it doesn't need change, but it needs improvement, which is change at the end of the day. But I'm really here to be a partner, right? Continuous improvement is a partnership with everyone involved. I'm here to be a coach. I can train you, I can mentor you, but I'm here for you. You are my customer, and making sure they understand that I'm not there to make their jobs more difficult. I'm there to support them and make their jobs a lot easier. And we're going to work on it together. And together, we're going to make things easier. But I'm not going to do anything without you being involved, and getting that buy in and letting them understand that really I'm not there to just, again, go in there and make chaos and make things and disturb the area that they're working in. I just want to listen. Again, I'm here to listen. What are the challenges that you're facing on a daily basis? What areas could I help you in? And understand their area. Work side by side with them for a few days, few hours, whatever it is, to let them know that you really want to understand their pain points versus going in there with the assumption of you think you know what their problems are. And that's going to be a total turn off to them as well. So just being a partner to them is what I would do.
I like that. That's a good answer. I think that's a critical thing. Sometimes people jump in too quick to start making change rather than to facilitating it. If you're working inside of an organization, let's say as that VP of continuous improvement, and I come to you as maybe I'm the CEO, and I say, "Hey Jesse, we need to put together a quarterly presentation for what the CI program is doing." And we've got some board members that are like maybe not totally bought into lean. And so like they kind of want to know like the dollars and cents or the ROI on it. Can you put something together for me? Can you give me an idea of what we might put on that?
So I would use A3s. A3s are really simple to understand. It shows, the current, where were you at when you started the problem. Really map it out for them. it's board members, so they may not want all the details. So keep it very high level. And when it comes to the ROI, it's really about increasing capacity. How much more throughput can we get out, and how have we improved the customer's experience? Because lean is not about getting rid of people. That is completely false, and people need to stop saying that. But there may not be a ROI on the financial side, right? It's going to be very difficult to track that in some projects. On the freight project I mentioned earlier, that's going to be an easy one. But in some projects, it's just you've increased capacity. So I don't have to hire another person because I've streamlined the process. I'm not getting rid of anybody, but we have more bandwidth to do additional tasks. So showing them the benefits from that side, showing them the employee engagement. Hopefully the board of directors want to see that employees are a lot more engaged. They're focused on what they need to do. The quality has improved through some of these lean efforts. Showing them the results. Again, how has it impacted our customer? How can we grow in our market space because of some of these improvements, and really just driving that home to them so they can understand what we're doing for the organization.
You touched on a couple of topics, cost savings. Something like laying people off could be considered a form of savings, and of course, we're not big fans of that. But cost avoidance is costs that never showed up, so it's hard to say that you saved them. But if you avoid opening up a new facility because you made better use of space, or if you avoid having to hire additional people because you made more capacity, I have seen a lot of CI leaders do a good job of articulating savings as part of that ROI formula as well. So I think those are some great examples of capacity and customer metrics, customer happiness, customer satisfaction, quality metrics, and employee satisfaction metrics. Those are great answers. Appreciate it.
One thing we did save on, would be overtime.
Yeah.
Overtime was up, so you reduced on your overtime. Maybe you're not having to make a capital expense on that machine anymore because you've improved the throughput on your machine by doing these quick changeovers. So when you thought you needed to buy 4 additional machines, you don't have to buy those machines anymore because you've increased your output on those machines by running them more efficiently and running smaller batches. In lean, right? We're going to run smaller batches, not the large batches that consume the machine's capacity. So doing those projects also showed that, look, maybe we had 4 machines on the capital expense budget for 125 grand. Well, with the improvements that we've made, that 125 grand can go to something else, and we can reinvest in the business somewhere else.
As you were saying that, I was thinking about the parable of if a tree falls in the wood and nobody's there, does it make a sound? If there's an improvement that's made in the organization, but somebody doesn't, talk about it, was there ever an improvement made? It's kind of like this similar analogy. I think that I think people underappreciate the role of a CI function in an organization to communicate the wins and the successes, because when those wins and successes are communicated through the organization, and if you do it in the form of savings dollars or just best practices or customer benefit, there's a psychological effect. If you're on a team and you see one player on your team, one department doing good things, it makes you want to step up your level. So I just want to advocate a little bit more for the CI function and folks like yourself who are doing the good work of making improvements on behalf of customers. Every single one of us that buys products, uses services, man, there's so many of them that need so much improvement.
Absolutely. We did a lean newsletter, and we started to send out monthly newsletters to the organization to let them know what we're working on. Last company I had, they have a great every other week. It's a town hall meeting. So a town hall meeting, the continuous improvement team would discuss the projects that we're working on to the entire organization, where we're at, with some of the projects, what's the status. So we were really marketing the CI team and promoting all of the improvements we were making. So the leadership team was bought in, and they let us really show what we were doing across the board, and really giving everybody some insights on how we're doing and what we're doing.
Yeah, I think that's again kind of it's an often underappreciated um, piece of value add to communicate the successes for their for their inspiration inside the organization. Jesse, the next section here, I like to call this the rapid fire. These are just a few quick questions. You can just give me a short, word or phrase type of answer. The most important job of a leader is to
Be a coach.
be a coach. Love it. What are some books that you might recommend on this topic or any other topic? What's some things on your reading list?
The Toyota Way is a great book from a lean perspective. If you don't time out, I'm going to look at my bookshelf real quick.
Okay, sure.
Okay, all right, I got a couple. All right, Atomic Habits is a really good book, and Trust. Those are three books that I would recommend. Trust, really builds the foundation between you and individuals. And Atomic Habits is a great book. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about that. Is just building those daily rituals or daily habits to show those small wins that eventually can become greater accomplishments.
I love it. Those are some great books. I'm a big fan of all the Covey books. Trust. If I remember correctly, there's a trust formula that I'm a big fan of. I think it's from that book. It's the trust formula is basically like the repeated act of making and keeping commitments builds
Absolutely.
trust. I think that's from that book. So, yeah, thumbs up. Those are great recommendations. I love those.
Thanks.
Who are some thought leaders that you follow or you would recommend that others follow?
I follow John Maxwell. John Maxwell is a really inspiring motivational coach for myself. He's one of the ones I listen to a lot. So I would say John Maxwell.
Excellent. Of all the tools in the Lean Toolbox, is there one that you find is like your go-to kind of one that you turn to, um, as a favorite?
Process mapping, flow charting, it all starts from there. That's really stems from it. Without a process map, you don't know where you're going. If you don't have your GPS, good luck getting where you need to go. So you got to start with the process map.
I love it. Man after my own heart. I often tell people inside my own company, my love language is flowchart.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everything's on a flow chart.
Yeah. How about this? Finish this sentence. Continuous improvement is
Improvement is our future.
future. I love it. I love it. Well, Jesse, this has been really fantastic. For anybody that wants to connect with you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
They can message me on my LinkedIn. Yeah, they can just go ahead and message me there, and I would love to talk to them about any opportunities they may have. I am out on the market right now, so if they're looking for someone that could really contribute to their company and help, everything I mentioned today's podcast, I would really appreciate the message, and we can have a conversation from there.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for joining us here. This episode is brought to you by KPI Fire. KPI Fire is continuous improvement software. KPI Fire helps you align your strategy, drive execution, and engage your people, all in one powerful software platform. So, whether you're leading a team or transforming an entire organization, KPI Fire is your partner in achieving breakthrough results. You can learn more at kpifire.com. Jesse, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. We really appreciate your time and your experience, and really looking forward to keeping in touch with you to see where your journey takes you next. I'm sure it'll be a great place. If anybody listening, if you'd like to suggest a guest, ask a question, or share any ideas for future episodes, you can reach out to me, Keith Norris, on LinkedIn. And this concludes this episode of KPI Fireside, a continuous improvement podcast. If you have enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us on all the socials and share the podcast with any friends or colleagues or anybody you think might be interested in a career in continuous improvement. And you can find us wherever you get your podcast. Until next time, keep driving progress and sparking change.